Ladies and gentlemen, there's a quiet hour, known only to a few, that holds within it the whispers of faith, the cries of the heart, and the most powerful connection between a woman and her Creator. Between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., while the world is still asleep, something sacred happens. It is in this silence, in this stillness, that many women rise, not to be seen, not to be heard by the world, but to kneel in prayer before God. They rise with burdens, with questions, with pain, but more than that, they rise with hope. Billy Graham often spoke of the power of private prayer, the kind that happens when no one is watching, when it's just you and the Lord. And it's true. These early hours, these unseen moments, are when heaven listens closest. A woman praying in those hours is not weak. She is at her strongest, because she knows that battles are won on her knees, not with her voice raised in argument, but with her soul bowed in surrender. There is something extraordinary that happens when a woman prays in the deep hours of the night. It's not just a ritual, it's warfare, it's healing, it's prophecy. It's intercession for her children, her home, her future. It's asking God to break generational curses. It's weeping over the lost and calling the prodigals home. It's trusting when all seems broken. It's faith in its rawest form. And time again, we see the fruit of those hidden prayers: restored marriages, transformed lives, peace that passes understanding. The world may never see those prayers, no one may applaud them, but heaven records every tear, every whispered word, every name lifted up in faith, and in God's perfect time, those prayers bloom into miracles. So never doubt the power of a praying woman in the hours before dawn. For while the world sleeps, she is building a future, one prayer at a time. First point, the power of private prayer during the early morning hours into approximately 800 words. There is a mysterious power in the stillness of early morning, a sacred silence that falls between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. when the world lies in slumber. This is the hour when heaven leans in closer. The noise of life is muted, distractions are at their lowest, and the heart becomes more open to divine communication. In these precious hours, when a woman kneels in prayer, something profoundly spiritual happens. Something unseen by the world, but deeply acknowledged by God. Private prayer, especially in the early morning, carries a unique intimacy. It is not about eloquence or public display. There are no witnesses to admire, no applause to expect. It is a moment entirely between the soul and God. There is nothing to prove, no image to maintain. It is raw, unfiltered, and deeply honest. This kind of prayer becomes a spiritual lifeline, a place where secrets are laid bare, fears are voiced, and faith is nurtured in the quiet trust that God is listening. Billy Graham often emphasized the importance of private devotion. He understood that true transformation doesn't come from mere routine or tradition, but from an authentic relationship with God. In the silence of the early morning, when the mind is uncluttered and the heart is soft, a woman can pour out her soul without interruption. She can be real, broken, grateful, desperate, or simply still, and that is enough for God. He meets her there, not with judgment, but with grace. He hears her before she speaks, understands what she cannot articulate, and begins to move in response to her faith. This hour becomes more than a time slot. It becomes holy ground. There is something about waking up intentionally, sacrificing comfort and sleep, that speaks volumes to heaven. God honors sacrifice. When a woman chooses to wake before the sunrise just to speak with him, it is an act of devotion that doesn't go unnoticed. She may be praying for her children, her marriage, her health, her dreams, or for healing from past wounds. Whatever the reason, God listens with attentiveness and love, because he delights in the prayers of the righteous. There are countless testimonies of women who have found answers, peace, and breakthroughs in these sacred hours. Prayers that once seemed to echo into silence were later revealed to be seeds planted in faith. And in time, those seeds bore fruit. Sometimes the answers come in dramatic changes. Other times they appear in subtle shifts. A softened heart, an unexpected opportunity, a renewed strength to keep going. But always there is movement in the spiritual realm when prayer rises from a sincere heart in the stillness of dawn. Women rise in the quiet hours between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., not out of habit or obligation, but from a place of spiritual strength that is often misunderstood or unseen by the world. In a time when society frequently associates power with visibility, loud voices, public leadership, or outward achievements, a woman praying alone in the dark seems easy to overlook. Yet this act, done in secrecy and humility, carries a weight that shifts spiritual atmospheres. Her strength isn't defined by how much she controls or how loudly she speaks, but by her dependence on God. She rises when her body is weary, and the world is still because something inside her refuses to give up. She believes in something greater than her circumstances, greater than her pain, greater than what her eyes can see. This is the strength of surrender. It's a paradox that confounds human understanding. To kneel in submission to God is, in truth, the most powerful stance one can take. She may be dealing with anxiety, heartbreak, financial stress, or fear for her family's future, but she doesn't rely solely on her own resources. She understands that real change, real peace, comes from tapping into divine strength. It's not about having all the answers, it's about going to the one who does, and that kind of strength doesn't scream. It whispers, it kneels, it weeps, it holds on when everything else says to let go. Many women carry burdens that others will never see. They wake with silent cries, aching hearts, and countless responsibilities. Yet in the middle of the night they choose to fight their battles on their knees rather than in anger or despair. That is strength. It takes courage to face the silence, to sit with uncertainty and still believe. It takes endurance to keep praying even when answers are delayed. These women are not victims of their circumstances. They are warriors in the spirit. Each whispered prayer, each tear shed in the dark, is an act of war against hopelessness and fear. Their strength also lies in their selflessness. Many of these women aren't even praying for themselves. They are interceding for their children, their spouses, their communities, or even for people they'll never meet. That kind of love, quiet, consistent, and sacrificial, is one of the purest demonstrations of God's own heart. It is powerful beyond measure, and though the world may never applaud them, heaven takes note. God sees what is done in secret and honors it in ways that often surprise and overwhelm. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it looks like a woman praying in her room while the world sleeps, waging war on behalf of those she loves. Equally powerful is the truth that hidden prayers lead to visible miracles. What happens in the spiritual realm often manifests in the physical, but not immediately and not always as expected. When a woman prays in the early morning hours, she is sowing seeds in faith. She may not see results right away. In fact, sometimes things may even appear to get worse before they get better, but God works in layers and seasons. He honors the secret petitions of the heart. The miracles that follow might be quiet transformations, a hard heart softened, a door opened at just the right time, a sudden peace in the middle of a storm, or they may be dramatic, healings, reconciliations, breakthroughs that only God could orchestrate. Either way, the power of those hidden moments is undeniable. Prayer in the dark is often prayer in the waiting. It is prayer in hope, sometimes even in desperation, and yet those moments are often where the deepest faith is born. When there's no one around to say amen, when the room is silent and the only sound is the ticking of the clock or a whispered "God, help me," something eternal happens. The woman who prays like this is placing her full trust in the unseen. And the Bible is full of reminders that faith is the evidence there is a sacred stillness between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m., a time when the world is silent and the noise of everyday life fades into the background. In this hour, many women rise, not to post, perform, or prove anything to the world, but to meet with their Creator in solitude. This time is powerful because heaven leans closer to the earth when everything else is still. In the early hours, a woman can pray without interruption. Her thoughts are clearer, her heart more open, and her faith more focused. It's not superstition, but a spiritual reality. The early morning is a time of intimacy with God, a window where divine conversations take place in the quiet. The woman who chooses to wake up in these hours is not simply chasing routine. She is chasing God's presence. She sets aside her comfort, sacrifices her sleep, and creates space to speak and to listen to the one who holds her life in his hands. This is not about religious performance. There is something profoundly spiritual about waking up between 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. to pray. These early morning hours are more than just a quiet time. They are a sacred opportunity to connect with God without distraction, without noise, and without interruption. In these hours, the world is still asleep, the air feels different, and the spirit is more sensitive. It is in this deep silence that many women choose to rise, not out of routine, but out of a holy desperation and faith that this moment matters. Prayer at this hour is not ordinary. It is filled with expectancy, and heaven listens in a way that feels closer, more personal, and undeniably real. It becomes a secret meeting place between the soul and God, where nothing else matters except the cry of the heart and the comfort of His presence. A woman who wakes up at this hour to pray does so not because she is weak, but because she is strong in ways that are rarely acknowledged. This strength is not loud or aggressive. It is quiet, enduring, and anchored in faith. It takes strength to get out of bed when sleep beckons, when the body is tired, and when no one else is watching. But she does it because she knows that real power is found in prayer. She may have wounds, fears, or burdens that feel too heavy to carry, yet she chooses to bring them before God instead of letting them consume her. That is true strength. The strength to be vulnerable, the strength to hope, the strength to keep believing when circumstances say otherwise. She doesn't rely on outward validation. Her confidence comes from knowing that God hears her in secret and honors her perseverance. These moments of prayer are not just for her own peace, but often for others. Many women use this sacred time to intercede for their children, their marriage, their loved ones, and even for those they will never meet between the hours of 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. The world is still, silent, and wrapped in darkness. It is during these early hours that a sacred exchange takes place between the soul and God. For many women, this time becomes a lifeline not out of ritual, but out of longing, faith, and deep spiritual hunger. When everything else sleeps, the heart awakens, and in that moment of solitude, God is near in ways that words cannot fully capture. These hours are not bound by religious routine. They are driven by a raw need for divine presence, for answers, for healing. The darkness outside mirrors the weight some women carry within, burdens too heavy to bear alone, yet instead of giving in to despair, they rise and pray. These prayers are not polished or perfect. They are honest, tear-stained, whispered from hearts that believe heaven is listening. This sacred time is not ordinary. It becomes holy ground where the invisible becomes real, and silence gives way to spiritual intimacy. To the outside world, a woman kneeling in the dark may seem powerless or desperate, but in reality she is moving mountains. Her strength is not measured by physical might or public status. It is measured by her courage to believe when there is no sign of change, her persistence in seeking God when answers feel delayed. She fights battles that others don't see, not with her fists, but with her faith. This kind of strength does not shout at praise. It does not demand attention, it surrenders in trust. She knows that the most important breakthroughs in life don't happen in the spotlight, but in the secret place where only she and God meet. Waking up in those hours is not easy. It's a sacrifice of comfort, but she chooses it because she understands something deeper, that divine power is drawn to those who seek Him wholeheartedly. And when she prays, even in weakness, even in confusion, she is actually displaying the deepest form of spiritual strength, the kind that endures, the kind that hopes, and the kind that refuses to give up. There is no prayer more powerful than the one whispered when no one is watching. Hidden prayers are often the most sincere. They are not spoken for approval, not crafted to impress, but spoken out of raw need and deep love. A woman may kneel in the early morning to lift up her children's names, to ask for strength in her marriage, to pray for protection over her home, or simply to pour out her heart in silence. And though no one sees these moments, heaven records every word. What is done in secret is honored in the open. Hidden prayers become the foundation for visible miracles, not always immediately, not always in the way expected, but always in the way God knows is best. The answers may come in small signs of peace or in dramatic shifts, but they come. And when they do,